Hello everyone, welcome to Vishnu IAS Academy. Today it's Saturday, so it's for Science and Technology Day. So every Saturday we will discussing Science and Technology Day of Lazy Prep. So let's begin with the current affairs of as a part of Lazy Prep series. Okay. First we'll be discussing about the groundwater contamination, because this is, if you observe, overall 85% of rural drinking water and 65% of irrigation India is provided by groundwater. That's why groundwater plays an important role. In the same way, that groundwater should, because you are using it for drinking purpose, so that should be pure. But now if you see, observe, the groundwater is getting contaminated. So let's see what are the background of this. If you observe, as we know, India is the largest user of groundwater, and especially in the states like Punjab, Rajasthan and West Bengal, there is lot of usage of groundwater. Because why? Because there is much irrigation and agriculture in that area. That's why there is a more usage of groundwater, and that area only you can observe the severe contamination of groundwater. So if you observe, other health burdens related to the groundwater contamination is nothing but a fluorosis and cancers. And if you observe, in Rajasthan in particular, there is a train which travels from Rajasthan to Delhi, which carries all the passengers of which has suffering with only cancer. That's because of the contamination of the groundwater. If you see the sources of contamination, first would be because of the fertilizers and industrial discharge and a sewage leakage and fuel seepage. And other natural would be fluoride, arsenic and uranium are the certain contaminating agents. And major, let's see the major contaminants and the impact. Because if you observe, what are the sources and the because of what is the effect we are going to get because of that contamination is we are going to see. This part in particular is very important for your prelims. And nitrates, because of the contamination of nitrates, we are going to get blue baby syndrome. If you can remember in this way, nitrate gas will be in a blue color. That's why if someone is having the contamination of nitrates, he will be getting the blue baby syndrome. And fluoride, skeletal fluorosis, or you can see the fluorosis in your teeth also. And in the same way, arsenic, because of that you will be getting the skin cancer and the other things. Uranium, as we know, uranium as a radioactive metal, because of that our kidney function will fail, that's why kidney damage. And heavy metals, especially you will get a neurological disorders. We can see, observe in that Kanpur areas about the contamination of this heavy metals, and there are certain challenges in order to avoid these things, like weak enforcement, and because of the poor monitoring and lack of real time is not proper in that areas, and even the mismanagement of industrial urban waste are certain challenges we are facing. And if you observe the policy recommendation, Central Water Body Commission should now be a statutory body, and a real time quality management should be present. And arsenic, fluoride, they are the most contaminating agents in India. That's why removal plans should be present in the hotspots. Let's say if some neurological disorder is occurring due to the heavy metals, like in the Kanpur region, that is a hotspot. There you have to establish these plans. And enforce zero liquid discharge for industries, and always promote organic farming and fertilizer regulation. Why? Because fertilizers, when we are giving plants the fertilizers and all, that will be going inside deep into the soil. It causes the contamination of water. That's why even fertilizers also plays an important role in the contamination. If you observe this mains related question regarding the groundwater contamination, so invisible but grave crisis in India. As we know, most of them doesn't know the causes and the contamination of the groundwater, but that's why it's a grave crisis. And what are the reforms we needed? This was the question, and we have discussed or said about the sources, and again the government gaps and judicial and constitution gaps and government steps. And at the final, we have ended with a beautiful quote by Gandhiji saying, water is a life, matter and matrix, protecting it today ensures health and security. So this quotation, whenever you get a question regarding water or water crisis, you can use this. So next move on to next current affair, ethanol blending. So as we know, now we have a target of achieving carbon neutrality by 2070 according to UN SDG goals, right? So ethanol blending is now more important for us. So India achieved this 20% of ethanol blending in petrol by 2025. Actually the target is 2030, but it achieved before 5 years. But here there rises some questions whether this can be sustained this when the problems we have like economic and environmental crisis. Will this 2025 before 5 years can this be sustained is the biggest question now we have. So if you observe the background, ethanol background, ethanol blending is a part of national policy on biofuels, and because of that if you observe, blending rose from 1.5% to 20% in 2025. And what are the other goals? To reduce import oils and to enhance energy security, and in the same way to increase the farmer income. That are the basic aim. And if you observe what are the key highlights, whenever we are doing something, that should always be sustainable. It should not do any harm to the people around us. So if we are blending 20% of ethanol way before, what are the impacts? So first one be the vehicle impact. Next one would be economical or physical in the process of taxes and agriculture environment, because we are using green technology and ethanol will be getting from the sugar cane, all the residues. That's why it impacts agriculture environment also, and the global trade issues and the future. What will be the future? What should be the outcome? And if you observe, as I said, economic and everything, if you observe in economic, we have 1.4 lakh crore forex reserves due to the reduced imports of crude oil. Now we are reducing crude oil import. That's why even there is a problem to our forex reserves also. And if you observe EV transition, ethanol blending cut 7 lakh tons of CO2, but EVs offer bigger gains, because EVs now offering bigger gains and all are moving towards electronic vehicles. But now we are doing something to the fuel, there is of no use. That's what the big question is. And now if you take the EV share, it's about 7.6% in 2024. Now it has suddenly jumped to 30%. So now we are moving towards more EVs, electronic vehicles. But even if you blend a diesel or petrol with the ethanol, it's no use now. So that's what it says. That's why here we have given a question regarding the mobility transaction and the 20% of ethanol blending, and we have given the transition question and about the economic significance and the policy and the mobility transition and environment and agriculture impact as well. So if you observe this, whenever we get the question regarding EVs or electronic blending, please try to use this quotation. As now so many of you are writing mains, you can use in your S&T paper also, because most of the times you will be getting the question either from energy or the EVs. True energy independence lies not in the speed but in sustainability. See, it's a very important and useful quotation. So coming to the next current affair, India's disaster risk financing and resilience. So if you observe, we are facing lot of disaster, be it landslides or earthquakes, some other like that. So our question is whether our disaster management is stable or sustainable. That's a big question. So if you observe, now economic losses we are facing now exceed 50,000 crore annually. That's a big problem here. And if you take the recent examples, Cyclone Amphan and Biparjoy, and if you observe the floods in Delhi and also in Hyderabad and Chennai as well, and Bengaluru water crisis as well, and 2023 Sikkim flood and Joshimath subsidence. These are the certain examples of disasters. And core issue, if you observe, always we are focusing now on relief, not on the resilience. In the same way, if you start focusing on the core problem of this solution, then it's easy for us to tackle the success. So if you observe the present key disaster threats in India, if you observe, the first one would be water scarcity. If you observe this thing in Bengaluru, and sea level rise and coastal erosion. If you observe the coastal erosion and the sea level rise, we can see over all the coastal states, especially in the region of Uppada in Andhra Pradesh, and forest fires. You can see lot of forest fires. Even recently you have observed this forest fire in Nallamala forest as well, and earthquake risk, because all the northeastern parts and Himalayan regions are prone to earthquakes. This is one more disaster. Urban flooding. You can see urban flooding in Chennai as well, and cyclones like Visakhapatnam, etc. coastal regions all will be facing the cyclones. These are the some of the key disaster threats now India is facing. And apart from this, some more disaster threats like urban heat islands and glacier melts, etc. are the certain. And if we observe earthquake in particular, 58% of India landquake is prone to earthquake, and water scarcity, 7% of groundwater is overdriven. So now this is the big question for each one of us and to concentrate upon. And other, see, if you see in particular what are the disaster management standards we have currently now, and why that management is inadequate is the present question. So if you observe, our disaster management is reactive but not preventive. And one more, it's because of weak local governance. We have so many laws, we have so many standards, but there is none to follow and nobody is there to regulate it. That's a problem here. And low community and private sector role. There is no participation of the citizens as well as a private. And the same way, technical gap and urban fragility. If you observe, we are constructing all the houses and we are giving permission to all the houses and apartments even in the regions of fragile regions like lake beds, etc. That's a big reason for this urban fragility or the flooding. And forest suppression risk. We are deforesting and we are started constructing all those buildings. That's again a problem for all these disasters. That's why this is a weak, and why we are facing, that's a reason. And if you observe, these are the certain measures like climate risk planning, decentralized risk mapping cells, etc. These are the certain plans we have to be concentrated upon. And if you see now here, if you observe disaster and resilience service cadre, this is the one which we are planning to establish in order to mitigate the risk due to the disasters. And this is a beautiful question we asked about the Disaster Management Act 25, and India you have to critically analyze it, and whenever you see the critical analyze part, that should be taken in a both negative and positive, both the ways you have to analyze the question. And we have to give certain examples with the year of occurrence, and way forward is also important. And if you observe again, this kind of sentence like spending on relief on building resilience is not most effective disaster response. And if you say like India needs spending on relief rather than investing in resilience. So whenever now we are seeing our present situation, as I said earlier, we are spending only on the relief. But if you start focusing investing on the resilience, that is the better solution for these disasters. And according to Kofi Annan, building resilience is the most effective disaster response. That's why you have to concentrate upon investing on resilience. So coming to the next fourth one, Global Plastics Treaty 2025. So in the list, every treaty we have some articles. So this article is about Article 20. If you observe, plastic pollution now is a global crisis and that need collective international action as well. That's why Global Plastic Treaty is a first global treaty on plastics itself. So if you observe this Article 20, it is a very important article. Why? Because it asks this Conference of Parties to create COP as a decision making body. So whenever conference happens, it is like a place where each and every individual will say their opinion, but the decision will not be taken by the COPs. But here Article 20 says COP has to be given the role of decision making body as well. So that's why, and let's see, because Article 20 is in news, let's see some of the other positions or the recommendations of Article 20, what it has. If you see Article 20, it says COPs must, and it should have annual meetings, and that directly should be implemented, and it should have national compliance reports. These are the certain, and the COP powers, if you ask me, create expert groups on microplastics. Whatever we are using like sunscreens, creams, perfumes, that everything is now with microplastics and nanoplastics. So that is a concern for environment. So that should be avoided. And we have to monitor the progress, and even in the every time, if you see the coordination between the NGOs, private players and the United Nations is must. That's what you are given here. So and this should also be act as a hub as well as the enforcer. And if you ask me about the governance and precedent, these are the always transparency and accountability should be there for this type of things. And if you see next one, negotiation and fault lines, wherever we are doing the mistake, we need to correct it. If you see that developing countries now not taking part, and disagreements between the number of states, and high income countries particularly, they wanted to use microplastics more because it's cheaper for them. Because of all this, now all these fault lines are forcing us to use the plastic more. And if you again see the question, because microplastic and plastic treaty I have discussed in a detailed manner, now it's easy for you to write the answer. So this is the question I have given you based on Article 20 of the Conference of Parties of Global Plastic Treaty, and I have given a model interview on the conclusion. And with the conclusion, if you observe, we will not win the battle against environment degradation unless we accept the shared responsibility. Always shared responsibility plays an important role. So for this, please write the full answer and send us to Vishnu IAS Academy email, which I have given in the description. And coming to the prelims facts, now if you see semiconductor mission. So now recently cabinet has approved for 4 new projects on semiconductor mission. So on August 13, 2025 recently. So where are these semiconductor missions? So if you observe, Odisha, Punjab and Andhra Pradesh collectively have 4 semiconductor missions with a total approval of 10 across 6 states. Total 6 states, 10 semiconductor projects. So India Semiconductor Mission, it launched in 2021 as we know, with the outlay of 76,000, because we are importing all the semiconductor either from the Taiwan or all the Southeast nations. So that's why in order to decrease the imports, we are now planned this semiconductor mission. It's an electronics and IT ministry. And if you observe, global semiconductor market is around 1 trillion by 2030, and India is expected to gain 100 to 110 billion. And at present, if you observe, 60% of chips are made in Taiwan, as I said. So that's why it's important for us to concentrate on semiconductors. So what are the schemes under the semiconductors is important? Semiconductors fab scheme and display fab scheme and design linked incentive. It's not PLI, it's a designed. And Semicon, it's a global event to attract other investors from outside to invest in India. And this mission focuses on what? Manufacturing and support designing and train engineers on semiconductor skills. This is about the first prelims fact, and next one would be International Court of Justice. So it said recently, like, on climate change, all the developed nations has to take part in the climate change. That was said by even ICJ. That's why this advisory opinion on all countries, especially developed countries, now it's in debate. Why? Though ICJ, whatever it has said, it's a non-binding, but it clarifies that every country should participate in this battle. That's what it says. And if you observe the background, this small island developing states which has less economy, they are vulnerable to all these effects. If you observe certain parts, like certain islands, all the developed countries, because of their emissions, because of the rising sea level, but these small states, they are facing problem. And if you observe, according to Paris Agreement 2015, 1.5 degrees C global level, that's an action we are lagging upon. And the same way ICC's opinion is also same, because even developed countries should play an important role. And if you observe certain obligations, like green gas houses are the certain obligations because of the developed countries, and to avoid this there are certain implications that domestication, litigation and boost all the states should be involved and raise the debate on climate action. That's what the implications. And coming back to the third prelims fact, Global AI City Index. What it is? Now if you see, artificial intelligence plays an important role. So in that way, Bengaluru now ranked 26th in Global AI and City Index. Whenever if you see the city indexes or something, you have to know which organization has released. If it is published by Counterpoint Research, and it concentrated on AI capacity, investment, infrastructure and the usage along with the innovation. So now India is emerging as a key player and leading a strong roadmap and regulations in the field of AI. But our Bengaluru rank only 26, that's a concern now, right? So as I said, this is about a global index, and criteria used are the ecosystem, startup, investment inflows and public-private partnerships. And if you see other things, how they are used in transport and healthcare sector, and particularly if you observe the India's performance, Bengaluru is 26th, and if you India it's the first, and Mumbai, Delhi they are implementing artificial intelligence in traffic and security also. Chennai, Kolkata, they are emerging as AI hubs. And if you see the top global leaders, Singapore, Seoul and Beijing are the global leader hubs. And because artificial is an emerging technology, it's important for us to bring a certain frameworks and the policy regarding us. So that's it about the artificial global index. And if you see the prelims based questions, I have given one question on groundwater contamination with the explanation and the answer. Other thing would be ethanol blending, again explanation and answer. And other thing would be global plastic treaty, again explanation and answer. So that's it for today. If you like our initiative, please subscribe, like, share, comment our Vishnu IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you.